gods and goddesses, creators to all things spirituality with yours truly, Maria Palomino, a sacred sanctuary that speaks the unspeakable and lets you in on the secrets of spiritual awakening. Introducing self-discovery, soul awakening tools that helps you remember your soul's true purpose to start manifesting a conscious reality. Every soul is unique, meaning no spiritual path is the same. Feel every conversation and let your mind, body, and soul guide you to what is unique to only you. It is the soul's resonance of remembrance. Now, take a deep breath, drop into your heart, and let us begin, beautiful souls creators. Welcome, gods and goddesses, to another episode of All Things Spirituality with your host, Maria Palomino. Today, we are being honored to have Marcia Canestrano, who is going to be teaching us what are the Akashic Records, our soul's library. Let me read a little bit about Marcia. Marcia was guided in 2016 by the goddesses to build Shakti Soul Coach, her business to assist humanity in aligning with the highest potential of each individual divine destiny through the modalities of Akashic record readings and energy healing from the Divine Mothers through Alana Fairchild's Kuan Yin transmission modality, Astro Akasha Starseed readings, and Kundalini Yoga. She's currently in the process of expanding her healing modalities to include the teachings of Mary Magdalene as channeled by Jay Quinn. She also conducts group sessions on powerful portal days throughout the year with guided meditation transmissions and Alana Fairchild Saraswati healing modality, joining with the goddesses for frolic and fun. Thank you so much, Marcia, for allowing us and grace us with your presence today. How are you?
I'm great, Maria. How are you?
Great. Thank you. And we love starting our podcast with a little tuning so we can drop into our hearts, allow the ego to step out as much as possible for our listeners to receive a high frequency messenger that is just coming in from the divine. Would you like to lead the tune in?
Oh, absolutely.
Perfect.
Okay. So, everyone, placing your left hand on your heart, your right over it, and just closing the eyes down if it feels safe to do so now. And just begin to breathe in, paying attention to the breath, allowing the breath to come down into the heart. And now let's take one very deep breath in all the way down to the belly. Feeling the belly and the heart and the chest and the collarbone expand. Now everyone just sigh it out. Letting go of whatever the day has brought or will bring. Bringing yourself into that sense of calm. We'll do this one more time. Inhaling very deeply into the belly. Filling up the chest, the heart, the collarbone, and just let it all go. And now, placing your attention on your heart center, allowing your heart center to be the guide for you during this podcast here, allowing you to listen with your heart, allowing the Divine Mothers of unconditional love and the divine guidance of all of unconditional love to be present within your heart, as well as your own inner wisdom and your own divine teacher within. Allowing your heart center to open and expand like a beautiful red rose. If you like, visualize, see, sense, feel that beautiful red rose in your heart, just blossoming and blooming, opening up to receive the divine words that are coming through the podcast, the energy of unconditionally loving divine sources through the podcast, and allowing yourself to listen to that divinity within you, sensing the soul and the wisdom of your soul as a part of the ever-expanding rose, the highest vibration of spiritual essence in a flower form, knowing that you are in the stage, in the Aquarian age, it blossoming into the highest of fifth dimensional beings, and just focusing here, see, sense, feeling, imagining that beautiful rose. And now, everyone, repeat after me. I call upon the divine guidance that loves me unconditionally and my higher self, and I call upon the soul that is within me to be here now, allowing for the vibration of unconditional love to permeate me tonight, tomorrow, this morning, whenever you are present in this energy, allowing yourself to lead with the heart, to live with the heart, to love with the heart. As above, so below, so be it. And everyone inhale that in. Hold the breath at the top and feel the vibration of the rose within you. And exhale. And when you're ready, slowly opening the eyes and allowing yourself to be present in the room now.
Thank you so much, Marcia. That was so beautiful. And you know how much I love working with anything that has to do with roses. So
Yes. Oh, that's right. This the tantric rose, and it was so funny because before we started, I have a beautiful rose spray back here, and I was kind of running around, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to spray the rose before I sit down. So that was the last thing I did before I sit down.
I have the
So,
roses behind
so
me.
we
I
have,
always put on a rose perfume, rose
oh, that's
oil,
right. Yep.
just to hold me center and open me
Yes.
up a little more. Because people, if you didn't know, the rose vibrates 6 times higher than we do. We vibrate around 50
Mm-hmm.
something, and the roses are 350, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Marcia, let's begin. Many people are hearing Akashic Records. It's more and more people are hearing the word, but they don't really understand what it is. Can you explain to us? Let's start with what are the Akashic Records? Why would
Mm-hmm.
people want to know and have a reading and go into their Akashic Record? Are there any repercussions if you do so? And then tell us about how you go about it and the teachings that it can bring for us. So go ahead, I'll let you begin.
Okay, well, the Akashic Records, the very small kind of monarch note version of the Akashic Records is that they are the library of every soul's blueprint that is housed in the fifth dimension. And within the soul's blueprint is every memory of every past lifetime, as well as what's going on now in this life and in current lives as we're building them, and current parallel lives, and then of course future possibilities. Now, like many other modalities, because we are here in the human realm and we are here on this planet, this is a free will zone. And so nothing is ever set in stone. So the Akashic Records, everybody's Akashic Records, always has the possibility of changing due to human free will. And so that's why there's only possibilities. There's nothing is ever set in stone. So that's the mini version. Personally, I feel that the Akashic Records come from a higher dimension, and it has been my experience. And I also feel that we can work within the dimensions too to bring through that information. Okay. And so, what would you like to know next?
Correct. That's a lot of information, especially if someone has never heard about the Akashic Records, knowing that there is a library of your soul, of all your lives, that it actually exists. And something that you said that was interesting is it also holds any future possibilities. I think that's
Yes.
something that people are always wanting to find out what's going to happen tomorrow and so forth. So the future
Yeah.
is already written because it's happening here in the present already, or how do you play with that or maybe not play with that?
Oh, well, everybody's been playing with it for a long time, right? Because everyone uses these manifestation tools. So that's
Okay.
essentially playing with the Akashic Records. That's writing your blueprint. That's working with your blueprint. That's
Interesting.
working with your gifts. And so, within that kind of a structure, there is a sense of there is a destiny. And because everybody comes in, everyone has their own personal natal chart, for example, and there are highlights in the natal chart that in your astrology that are like, oh yeah, this is like where you're going in your future in this lifetime, which would be characterized by the North Node. But also in the Akashic Records, there's a lot of play of how you can like achieve that career if that's what you're here to do in this lifetime, or achieve that sacred relationship if that's what your destiny in a destiny in a long kind of full word encapsulates. Okay. Also, too, the thing about the Akashic Records is they are it isn't like a set book where we have the book and the only way that they change the book is you rip the pages out. And the records are not like that. And that's one of the points of a reading. And that's one of the points of been my whole entire life journey, because I've
Okay.
been dabbling in the Akashic Records without even knowing it since I was a very small child. I was someone who
Wow.
was already experiencing, I would look in the mirror and see my past, I could see myself in my past life as a small child. And I can remember, I'm getting chills just saying this, talking about this is so
Yes.
funny.
Tell
And,
us more.
yeah. And so, I had these experiences as a child where I would look in the mirror and I would be like, what am I doing with these people? Namely my parents. Like, what am I doing here? Where's my castle? Where's my trust fund?
Oh,
And, because I was living in a very middle class house in upstate New York, that's where I was raised. But I also am someone who's come in who is actually literally integrating 2 to 3 other lifetimes within this lifetime. So I have very
wow.
intimate knowledge and experiences that are directly related to these other 2 lives. And one was as an English noblewoman in the 1700s. So I was like, where's my trust fund? How can you be telling me I'm not rich? Or why
Correct.
are
Yeah.
my servants? How come I have to clean my room? But I would also see myself, like looking in the mirror and seeing someone who looked like right off of Little House on the Prairie. I had a lot of those, like that really resonated with me. And there was a big lifetime that's one of the ones I'm integrating that came through about 10 years ago, where I was living that life here in the United States in, the middle of the country.
Yeah.
So that's part of what my experience has been. And so I didn't even really learn I was tapping into the Akashic Records until I was in a healing circle with a very powerful psychic medium.
Okay.
And she was sitting next to me. We were all holding hands, and I started just channeling, like someone was getting a channeled message. And she turned to me after I finished, and she said, "Do you know you're channeling the Akashic Records? Not many people do that."
Yes,
She's
it's
like,
very
"I do that.
special.
How come I recognize it?" And I had no idea that's what I had been doing. And I mean, this only happened like 2012. So it's not that long ago. It's only 9 years ago.
What a special
And
year.
yeah, it was. There was a lot that happened that
Interesting.
year. Yeah. And the year before, I had just come back from my first trip to India. So it
Mm.
was almost like exactly a year later. So that was 2011. So there's that 2011, 2012 period that were hugely life changing for many people. And if anybody's records are going to be changed, man, that was definitely a powerful
Yeah.
point. But
And
also 2020 was too. And getting back, I had been told by a beautiful healer that I'd been working with when I first got to LA in like 2002. She's like, you read the Akashic Records. You're going to do Akashic Record reading. And I had no idea what the Akashic Records were. And it just kind of went, yeah, right.
so important that you're sharing this.
And so, yeah, because, we all are in this place of learning. And so when I finally, because I would go to get a reading and I'd ask people, what am I doing? I don't even know what I'm doing. And no one else could put a name on it until that one woman in 2012, I guess, when I was ready to receive it and accept it and own it. She was the one who was like, this is what we're doing. And then all of a sudden I had all these other people who are reading the Akashic Records come to me.
You had
Like,
opened that door.
we're all magnetizing each other.
Correct.
So anyway, that was my experience with them. And part of the experience of knowing the past life, quote unquote, is that for some of us, we are integrating that. There's a lot of wounds that we have all endured over many lifetimes. And sometimes just through the reading itself and the acknowledgement of the wounding that was occurred, whether it's physical, mental, spiritual, or emotional, that will automatically do a healing. When I do my when I do my readings, I actually do tap into the healing energy of the Akashic Records, so I can heal through my words and my voice. And so I don't do the healing, they do, but this
Of
is,
course.
I'm
Yeah.
just their platform, their sounding.
And you're a clean vessel. That's very important. Whoever
Yes,
you
and
go
I'm clear
to,
vessel.
make sure
For myself.
that person is a clear vessel,
Yes.
that they're being very aware of what they're consuming, not just with food, but what they're listening to, who they're sleeping with.
Yes. Yeah.
Very
Body, mind, and
important.
spirit. Yep.
Yes.
What you eat, what you practice, what you listen to, what you watch, who you're around. It's all very, in your space, of course. It's all very, very, very important to really be clear. And also your intention. Your intention is
Intention.
very, very important.
Intentions are portals.
Yeah,
Yes.
because I was given a little prayer that Spirit gave me. I do other things to get into the records now officially when I do a reading, but also too, like, I can feel the energy coming in through that. And so these are, that setting that intention for every client or everything that we do is so important. Now, the other thing is that I want to go into, because people, I do use the word past lives, and I don't want people to get the idea that this is we are living in this linear timeline. That is absolutely not true. I use past lives because it's easier for people to understand, and a lot of it just has to do with being a past life of completion. And sometimes it's in this timeline that we are in 2021, in this timeline. Other times it shows up as other timelines too,
Yeah.
that it's in this dimension, but it's not running exactly where we all are running. So time is, it is infinite. So we are in so many ways always participating in these lifetimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and there are times where absolutely we can change our records, but that changing of the records and changing of soul agreements and soul contracts happens at a very high level of practice. You cannot be in your ego for that. Believe me, it absolutely cannot happen that way.
Vulnerability.
And yeah. And because I have been in a situation, I've been in two, I have done it literally, I think, twice for sure. And both times I was, interestingly enough, in group practices. And within the group practice, it was a beautiful sacred container that was being held. And the first time it happened, there were two other women who were next to me. I was a woman from the 1400s, and she was my sister. And we had been tossed off of a boat and just left for dead. And when the first time I had the vision, I died. But the second time, when she was there and another woman was there who was like, she's like, I saw everything that the two of you saw. But she's like, it's like I was looking at you from above. So I felt like she may have even been our deceased mother. And the two of us were able to change that outcome where we both were able to survive. The shore was much closer than we thought. And we ended up living a very happy, healthy life.
And had a peaceful death as opposed to a tragic one. That's the
tragic, traumatic death. And the person who was causing the death was one of the people, another person who was in this big group.
Wow.
And so there was like, I never felt any wounding toward this person at all. And so, so it was like, oh yeah, there was anything that comes to be karmic debt was all erased. So this is where we can work in the records as an active, breathing entity, where it's not some old, stiff book that the pages are written and there's no changing of them. Like I said, you absolutely have to be not in your ego. You have to be in your higher self, and you have to be ready. Because I'm also in a situation currently where I had to sit. I really was desperately wanting to change a situation with one person in particular.
Yeah.
And I've been revealed to me, we had done this pattern of me being submissive and oppressed by this one individual for 6 lifetimes. This is number 6.
Yes.
And so five other lifetimes, this is number 6. And I was like, I'm done. Totally my ego, right? Totally
the
my
warrior
ego.
self.
Yeah, I'm totally the warrior.
The people
I'm
don't
like,
realize it's time to drop the warrior. It's not about being in the warrior. There's a lot of ego in the warrior.
Yep. And so when the time was right, I was doing the Mary Magdalene. We were doing a big Mary Magdalene meditation with Jay. And the opportunity just like opened up. And the person that was the other party of this, his higher self came right in and said, okay, I'm ready to work with this. So I have, he had decided not to pay the karmic debt. And he's like, but we're not going to go through this replay again in another timeline, in another lifetime. And so we resolved it.
Love it.
And so this is a kind of healing that can happen. Through a reading, it's at a smaller level, but it still does happen. And we also can see parallel lives. Parallel lives are lives that are happening concurrently as we are in this. We talk about the soul, but on a higher level, there's a soul, oversoul. And so from our oversoul, we can have pieces of us. I don't even like the word pieces, but there
Fragments?
are the maybe fractals.
Fractals. Yes.
Fractals is a good word. Fractals of us that have decided to incarnate at the same time. So I'm running like right now. I'm here, 2021, in this timeline, in this dimension. And I'm also living a lifetime in the exact same time frame, but it is in a different country, and I'm a man, interestingly enough. And I'm also parallel, so we can see that in the records. I also have a parallel life that is running, but it's not in this timeline, and it's actually running post World War II, when the United States lost World War II. So it's living in a completely different experience of those events.
Why is that happening though? Why is it that you're right here in the present, the one that you're conscious about now, but then there's this kind of not even past life but it's behind time. that's
Right.
happening concurrently. And that's different from multidimensionality, right? These
Yes.
are just parallel lines,
Yeah.
parallel lives.
I believe they're just parallel lives.
Yeah.
And I feel like I feel that they're happening because the soul wants to experience as much as it can experience. And also too, especially if we come in, everyone who's going to be listening to this has a vast amount of healing power. And so we can go into those situations and bring the healing power of the soul um, into those situations. And I'm very convinced that, it was very funny because I was getting all kinds of right hip pain. And that's when I found out I was this man in Argentina also at this time. And I didn't think my chiropractor was like, "Oh, you're this man in South America." And I said, "Oh, it's in Argentina." And he's like, "Yeah, how'd you know?"
Yeah.
The reason I know that is because my great grandfather abandoned my Italian family and my
Mm,
grandfather in Italy and took off for Argentina and was never heard from again.
makes
And
sense.
so I truly believe that I incarnated in that life to bring healing to the abandonment from my part of the lineage, and then bring also to the healing that needs to go to, and the resolution that needs to go to my great grandfather's lineage.
That's
So,
beautiful. It's
so
all
I
about
do.
love and healing and just
Yes, all comes
ascension
down to love. It all
and
comes down to
experimenting. Our soul wants to experiment. So as we come back, I think sometimes people take on a burden or take it on as a mission and they forget that the whole point of experiencing is also joy.
yes, yeah.
It's
I mean,
and I think
we're
people
through this
get
life
lost sometimes, right? When they
ultimately.
discover this path, that you have to have fun as much as possible. Yeah, because it's about the path and the journey, and that's how the soul's going to evolve. It needs to be in love with life and
Yes,
everything that comes its way. Yes,
yes.
we're on a mission to heal and to open our hearts. Well, why do we have to do it so seriously?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I love about dance.
Yes,
It's
dance.
dance because dance just opens all that joy right up. All that
Yeah.
movement just moves through everything, and yeah, it just like oof, puts you in it, and it gives us an appreciation of the body, and the joy that we bring to the body then brings that joy to the soul too.
When
So.
you're doing readings for other people, do you sometimes see things for them that maybe you're told just keep it for you? Maybe they're not ready to receive it, or everything that you receive is meant for them to hear, even though it might be very tragic.
For the most part, this is part of the intention setting.
Mm,
Is that when I do set the intention, it is for whatever is for their best and highest good to know at this moment in time.
key.
So the one thing that I won't do, I have had over the years, people actually ask me, like, do you know when I'm going to die, or my husband's going to die, or my parents are going to die? And I
Wow.
mean, I
Hard
don't even, yeah,
questions.
it's kind of, in a way, it's kind
Wow.
of weird. Um, but I'm like, and even if I wanted to look at that, I'm like, no, and plus, let's face it, in a weird way, I like that's a question I just won't. I feel it's unethical for me to even speculate personally, to even like look in. Um, Also, too, the soul's infinite ultimately. So, and plus, too, we talk about the free will and the future possibilities.
Yes.
So, this is the other thing that people have to understand: a death date is not a date set in stone. And believe me, my mother had not one, but two near death experiences. So she changed her death date
Changed
3 times, okay?
timelines. Yeah.
Nothing is set in stone, even the day that you're going to go out. So the other thing is that permission wise, I also have information about when I receive information, let's say about a person's child, it is through the mother's come for a reading, and it's through the mother. So
Mm,
that to me is a doorway that the mother is getting permission to know, to receive this information about her children. I've had mothers say to me, "Oh, I want you to read my baby's records," and I won't do it because the baby it cannot give permission. As
yes.
far as I am, and I'm one of these people that's kind of on the fence about like tuning into the higher self, and especially of a baby, I don't know, for some reason. So I'd rather, when I have somebody sitting right in front of me or on the phone, that way I know I'm given explicit permission to go into their records, and that whatever's going to come through is for the best and highest good of that person, for me, and for the best and highest good of all.
That's the most important thing.
Right.
Because
Because I know,
otherwise, ego stepping in, and the whole
yes,
point is,
very much
as a good
so.
healer, you're just a channel for the good and highest good. You have to
Yes.
be very careful. What are the intentions of the other person?
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
very, very
Absolutely.
important. Because sometimes they don't even realize that they're in their ego, or they don't realize that they're being controlling, and they're sabotaging, their best self.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
yeah, that's good. I love that. That's why that's why you're my Akashic Records reader. I love the epic that you carry. Is there any time, because I've heard this before, and it was interesting. They said sometimes you don't want to tap too much into your Akashic Records, because then your highest self gets confused, your soul gets confused, because there's a pattern, a blueprint, and all of a sudden the books get moved.
Oh, that's interesting. I'd never heard
Ever heard
that
of that?
before.
Okay.
No, I've never heard
That's
that
totally
before.
safe from your practice that you've done.
Yeah, for my practice, it's so funny because I was meditating on that earlier, and now I'm like, okay, I'm tuned into the Divine Mothers. Remember, remind me of what you said earlier about this. And they're like, it was a really interesting answer because they said it could never really be moved because it is not a book that is in a library that is a very 3D kind of perspective.
Correct. For us to
And
understand it.
and so they're like it's so much more infinite, and it's all energetic, and energy can't be created or destroyed, right? And so it only transforms. And so there is not there just isn't this kind of according to them, they just didn't come through with an answer about confusion. They
Okay.
were talking about it being a much more energetic process than a very literal process. The other thing too is, interestingly, I don't have people that come to me weekly because they receive so much energy, so much information that they need to process it, and they intuitively know they need to process it. And so, and I also feel that the soul guides them to that too. And even if there is someone who's like, okay, I didn't, my session, I have an hour, but I have a few more questions, and they come back the next week, but then I won't hear from them for another year.
Yeah.
So that's it. Or sometimes I don't hear from them ever again.
There's a lot of integration that needs to happen
There's
after.
a lot of integration. So it very naturally isn't a process where we're constantly tapping in. The other thing, too, that I do want to say is we were talking about like the intention. And if people are interested in opening up their own records, one of the methods I do use is I use a pathway prayer by Linda Howe. Is translated from an ancient Mayan prayer to open up the Akashic Records. And that's one of the ways I use it. Some people are very skeptical about it, which is
Mm,
fine. I actually do like a threefold process because that's what I've been guided to do, and that's my last part of it. Because I'm already like tuning into the person's energy in the records. Now, for anyone who wants to do it themselves, they always call on guides in unconditional love. Like Mother Mary, who
yes.
loves me unconditionally. my divine guidance that loves me unconditionally. This is where things get really murky. And this might be where, you've read about the confusion,
Correct.
because we have deceased loved ones even who are like, oh, she just called Mother Mary, and they're just going to slide in there because they're like, oh, we can help. But they're not of a neutral place. They're not of an unconditionally loving, high place.
So happy you're
And
saying
that's
this.
where things can really get wonky. And you can really begin to tap into a lower vibration. And even with the prayer that I just mentioned, please include those words, or, make sure that you end with those,
So
ending with
important.
everyone who's calling in is an unconditional love, because we want to work with the highest of the high. And everybody who starts channeling, and this happened to me plenty, I was in a group where we were doing this, and the lower vibration snuck in. And like you said, Maria, the great reminder about being a clear channel. I didn't realize what was going on, but I was walking into a house that was filled with very low vibrational energy, and they were watching the news like 2 minutes before we would walk
Oh
in.
no.
The house wasn't being cleared. They never
Ooh.
had touched the house in their life. They were a couple who was fighting. It was like all kinds of just like, oh, and that like was just like letting all kinds of lower vibrations in. And so
Yeah.
I also highly recommend that people, smudge your space, or, imagine white light in it, or do a white light waterfall wash, or use mantra.
Visualization is so powerful. And people don't realize, and I think a lot of people are calling in 4D energy, 5D energy, 6D energy, but 4D, especially 5D, there's also a dark side. So that's why it's
Oh,
so important to say, from beings and guys that are from unconditional love, from the city of light, where only white light exists. And
yes,
a lot of people are opening up, but there's a lot of training to be done still. So maybe we can
yes,
create a course together just to help people out, because a lot of
maybe,
channels are opening, and we
yes,
walked through it. Even you started channeling the Akashic Records and you had no clue,
yeah. I had
right?
no idea
And
what I was.
that's why it's so important to find that guidance. But once you open yourself up, like you said, you start magnetizing
Oh
those
yeah,
people, those teachers start showing up. Like, I manifested you, for example, and I found you at Satnam Fest.
yes, yes.
So beautiful.
Yes, and so I feel that this is really important because yeah. Basically, I want everybody to learn from my mistake, that I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was doing it, and
Yeah.
everything's been so much clearer when I call all my guides in an unconditional love. And I learned that from Alana Fairchild. Okay, so I'm gonna shout out to Alana for that. The one thing too is that. If you are getting a reading that does feel bad, that you don't feel good, that you feel scared, you're frightened of the information, more than likely there are lower vibrational entities coming through and the giving the reading.
Yeah.
And even though the person has the best of intention, something is snuck in that is wanting to make you feel bad. And even if you're receiving a very healing reading where you're crying, it should still be cathartic. You should still feel lighter when you leave and not heavier when
Yes.
you
Yes.
okay?
There's a difference when you're releasing, but you know that it's for your highest good. You just know that you're going to feel lighter, and that this is okay. Like, you needed this
Yeah.
spell. And that really brings up, and it's so there's so many people, that have been healers for a long time. They're being healers, and sometimes they don't drop into their heart, or they're, like you said, they're doing it with the best intention sometimes. But there's this spiritual ego, like, I'm helping a lot of people. They don't even realize that they're attracting low vibration.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of that, and the more
Yes.
training I've had and the more I've seen, and it's all about experience. So it's okay wherever you are, or if you have gone to these houses, it's part of the path. That's the only way we're going to learn. And I think it's part of our school system. I've noticed we're so scared of getting an F because we're considered a failure or a bad grade. It's all an experience. It's okay. Like, let's throw that away because there's this, we're scared of fail. There's no such thing as failing. It's just learning and progressing. Just throw it
Exactly.
away. But yeah, with me, I've gone to many homes in the past, and I'll share with Matthias de Stefano being in the pyramids and doing private ceremonies. The darkness has come in, and it's been so beautiful and so vulnerable, and it's allowed me to love my own darkness. But
Mm,
since he is so high divine, and he's all about neutrality, he brings
mhm.
in the light or the darkness that work for neutrality, because the whole point is the universe wouldn't exist, or this 3D without the polarities, but it's about
Yeah.
having both of them work together. That's the work that he's doing. He's creating
Yeah.
those negotiations per se to reconnect the dark and the light, but it's all about neutrality. So I never thought darkness could be so beautiful till I got
Mm,
to experience it. And it's true, because sometimes when you're so much in the light and all of a sudden something shows up, or
mhm,
you go into a place where there's a lot of darkness, you don't know what to do, and
mhm.
you give away your power, and you're just wanting to call in this divine higher beings. It's like, no, it's you are the god goddess. You have the power to do it on your own. But
Mhm.
that's when you start working more with the neutrality, because you realize like everything is you, everything is just a dream. So the Akashic Records, it is like this dream that we can tap in, and we're
Mhm.
asleep and then we're awake at the same time. So thank you for sharing all of that. Some questions that people that I keep on hearing is like, how can someone start becoming more active and tapping into their own Akashic record? Some tips that they can do, maybe a discipline that they can start developing. I know we talked about what it is that you are
Right.
consuming, maybe how to open up their third eye and so forth.
Wow.
Or is it more of a gift that people like
Yeah,
like you?
it is, but I do feel like everyone has the power of intuition. And so opening up the third eye is where we're all going in humanity, because it's this, right? And going into the Aquarian age and the 5D plus reality is that we're connecting intuition and we're connecting the heart and the divine masculine, divine feminine, right?
Yeah.
And so opening up for me, meditation, and truthfully, I had been doing yoga a lot. I had practiced a lot of different styles of hatha, more or less hatha based yoga, but Kundalini yoga is what really opened me up. Now, that's not everyone's cup of tea.
No,
And so
everyone's different. That's the whole point of this
everyone's
channel.
different.
Yeah.
That's what works for me. And then, but I move more away from that practice, and I am doing all kinds of other spiritual work. For me, more you can do dance, you can do meditation, you can do walk in nature. Right now, one of the biggest things is silence. To do maybe
Ooh.
5 minutes of silence a day. Close your eyes and just focus at your third eye at the point between the brow, because it's stimulating your pituitary gland. You stimulate the pituitary gland, you're going to open up your third eye. And you can do it with a pranayama, and that pranayama can just be long, deep breathing, or you can do it with breath of fire if you like breath of fire, or you can do it with like a 4-part breath. There's many ways that you can begin to open this up. Um, those are just a few that are coming up. It's really interesting because I'm feeling like there's someone in the audience. Like I'm seeing Sufi, like a
Ooh.
Sufi practice
Mm.
where you can do the whirling and you
Swirl.
can You can do the
Yeah.
whirling and just following that, keeping your eyes open, but following it on your thumb or your finger as you go around. Anything like that. You know what, too, is definitely one of my great loves is oracle cards.
Yes,
I have
oracle cards.
I love my oracle cards, and I love astrology too. And actually, in my natal chart, I these are gifts. Especially, I've already been an astrologer many other lifetimes, and I've
Of
already been,
course.
I always remember, like, this is an interesting little past life tip. This is what everybody
Do
can kind of
share.
reflect. Is here in the States, Halloween's a really big holiday. And so I have read in the past where reflect upon when you were a child, what would you want to be most for Halloween? And what was I the most? A witch and a gypsy. Those are like the two biggest costumes that
Oh,
I always was. And then the third one was I would dress up. My mother had these clothes from like the early 1950s, and I would wear a blonde wig. And that's exactly how I looked in one of my past lives, I found out later.
that's
And I would do
incredible.
that when I was older, when I was, right at that end age of trick or treating. So, yeah. So, a lot of
Because you're
times,
always wondering, like, how is it that, I have kids and every one of them have different tastes of not only of what they eat, but their different colors, different movies. And it's all because our soul's blueprint is so unique,
yes,
right? And
exactly.
there, so follow that instinct. And why is it
Yeah.
that you want to travel to certain countries and you're attracted
Oh,
to certain languages? That's
oh,
all a clue.
it's all a clue.
It's
It's
all
all
a
a clue
clue.
of who you are as a soul complete. Um, the other, I would definitely look at your diet, and I am, in my life, I am almost vegan. I'm not totally vegan. I do go off. I'm lived most of my life veganish,
Yeah.
and at the holidays, I have a heritage that likes cheese, so I eat cheese. That's that.
Cheese is, I think, one of the hardest things to let go of. If I go to Italy, I'm eating pizza.
Yeah, exactly. Between both of my heritages, between my Italian and my Polish heritage, we love our cheese. So, at the holidays and a treat, it's great. Just make sure you're eating something that's high vibe. And this is the other thing that's coming through big time. And I've been doing this for quite a while, is blessing my food. And
Oh,
it's now coming through
yes.
coursework. So bless your food, and this will tune you into the divine, and that can begin to open up your sensory perception, your extrasensory perception, your third eye, and your
Yes.
intuition. Even that kind of a holy ceremony, doing it a couple times a day. Bless your water too,
Yes.
because that's
Water.
becoming that's very necessary. And drinking lots of water. I do feel looking at your diet is something that is very vital. At least it was for me.
Yeah.
I
It's
do hear channels that can go out there like, I don't drink alcohol, but that was way before I started any of this. I stopped drinking alcohol the minute I went into my yoga teacher training. Actually, no, went vegetarian. I got a download where I hadn't even begun to practice Kundalini Yoga. And a month before I began to practice, I opened up the refrigerator. I had this beautiful chicken meal, and I looked at it. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm vegetarian now. And that was that. And I threw it away.
it's pretty
And the same
interesting how
thing
it just
happened to me. I was
happens.
in the bar with my brother with a half a glass of beer. And I looked at the beer, and I was thinking about taking the teacher training. And I looked at the beer, and I'm like, I'm done. Do you want the rest of my beer? I'm quitting. He's like, what? You're done for tonight. I'm like, no, I'm done.
For
I'm quit.
life.
I don't ever
The
drink again.
desire just went away with the decision that you made.
Yeah,
Or
it
it
just went
just,
away.
yeah, that's when it's
And,
effortless. There's no resistance. Like with me, and sometimes, oh, eat too many carbs or too many white sugars. And sometimes I'll think about it too. I'm like, well, that's resistance. That's not how it happens. Just relax. Because the
yeah,
more you
exactly.
think about it, the more you're fighting, the more attention you're putting into it. Just I think with me and alcohol, it's just it went away. And people, how do
Yeah,
you do it? I'm like, there's no resistance. I have no desire. It dropped.
desire. There's
And
none.
but I feel like
And
a lot of us that are healers,
yeah,
and we've
the
done this in
vibration
other
of,
lifetimes, it's we've signed up for this.
yeah,
We already signed up for this. So it was meant to happen. So I mean, I've enjoyed my life before and, all the drinking that I did. But if
yeah,
you are now taking another role, then it's a
yeah,
different responsibility. It is a huge responsibility
yeah,
when you're doing a
yes.
cleansing with someone, because once you open yourself up, you could channel anything.
Oh, yes. And
Yes.
that's, that's why goes back to our previous conversation about love, light, unconditional love. That's all you want
Yes.
to work.
Love, light, and
Um,
unconditional love.
the other thing I want to say, because people are like, oh, the whole yoga thing, the yoga diet. And I want to emphasize that when I'm talking about a clean diet, doesn't mean that you have to go vegan. It means that you have to be conscious of what you're eating. And everyone needs, just like everybody's records are unique, everybody's body is unique. And so, eating the highest vibrational meat, if that's what your body requires for you to be the best
Exactly.
channel, just eating whatever it is that that fuels you, so you can be in your highest vibration and maintaining yourself as when you're, especially when you're working with people, in your higher self. The also too, I feel, because third eye gets really dirty, you know, from all the toxins and everything.
Especially everything that's in the water and in the food nowadays is not in the air. You can't escape it.
There,
That's why, oh, I wanted to tell you, how often do you do cleanses? Like do like a detox, conscious detox for maybe a few days?
I am not a very diligent person when it comes to that. See, now that's where I'm a person who I eat. I sometimes I get to this place where I'm like, my whole life is a detox. So,
Yeah, it's
but
a lifestyle once you get there. But people that are
it's,
starting, it's important to do a detox to
yeah,
clean
I've been
clean those
like,
organs.
yeah, I'm more. I do it when I really get the hit. Like, I found, and this is another thing too. You have to work with what works for you. Um, I also have great support teams, which is huge.
Community.
I have, because I've always had great intuitive healers that worked with me, and chiropractors, and energy healers. And that's a part of what has helped to keep me clean and clear. I also do have a daily practice, which really is, and it doesn't have to be some big, there's traditions that say you have to do 2.5 hours a day. That isn't practical in our human life.
Yeah,
And as long, you can do 10 to 11 minutes a day. Just
correct.
get up and call in. First thing, this is one of the ways to open yourself up to spirit, is calling in your divine guidance who loves you unconditionally
Mhm.
every morning. I call in the divine guidance that loves me unconditionally, and I ask for your help, support, protection, and intervention and assistance in all ways that will benefit me and support my spiritual growth. Thank you.
Beautiful.
It's
Mm.
all, start there. Open your day that way, close your day that way. And that will actually, you're bringing your guides in. So you can
Yeah.
you can even begin to start hearing them, because you're building a relationship. That's the other thing about opening up your third eye, is I have a relationship with my guides.
Yeah, you
Sometimes I
do.
don't like my relationship with my guides. I'd rather not have that relationship, because one of my guides is, like, for example, Kali. And
Oh,
sometimes it's like,
wow.
I've had enough.
Yeah.
And also, too, I want to say that prayer is from Alana Fairchild's teachings. So everybody knows that. Give her credit for that. I've
Yeah.
studied quite a bit with her. So, and I love her oracle cards. So anyway, and even like working with an oracle deck like Alana Fairchild, like Rebecca Campbell, those are two of my favorites. They have beautiful healing processes and prayers at the end of them. And just doing those can begin to bring healing and change your life and open up your intuition. So
Correct.
that's another way. It's very, there is no one way. whatever resonates with you. And some people out there might really like love the I Ching or runes or in whatever it is.
Yeah. And that's so beautiful because it just brings back to how unique we are and the diversity that we have. Every person is their own universe, their own planet. It's like get to
Mhm,
know it, just explore. For
mhm.
people, this is a big question because I know I'm sure many people go and ask when they do a reading with you about their relationships and they want to know about their boyfriend, their husband. Can you, can anyone, if it was to you or any other reader, are they able to access that other person's records without their permission?
Um, I I personally would never do that. I would never do that, especially in a partnership like that. To me, that's an invasion of the other soul's privacy. They haven't given permission. Like I said before, the relationship is a different thing because we can see through the person who is asking what the dynamic is between those two souls and what kind of relationships they may have had in other lifetimes and other timelines, and the potentiality of where the relationship could go in this lifetime, or if there's a block and what the block is, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. But
So how is
it's
it
always
different when
the
people
party who is given permission, and it has to be through their records,
make
because
sense?
within their records, that person, that soul has entered, has like an entry in the records, if you will.
Yeah, because their souls, right? Their energies are mixed right now, so you can tap into it. But it's different if you go into their actual record. So how is it
Yes.
different with someone goes and does like a psychic reading, like tarot card readings, and people are always asking about other people and their loved ones? Is that also tapping into the Akashic records, or is there a distinction?
It depends. Um, I always, whatever I do, is I'm just one of those people who taps into the Akashic records, because when I teach yoga, I tune in and I'm tapping into the Akashic records because I can see and I can feel all that kind of information. I know what it feels like now in particular. A lot of times, a psychic reading, they're reading your field. So they're
Makes
reading
sense.
more like what's hanging around in your astral, what's hanging around in the etheric bodies. Um, some of them may certainly be tapping into the records. A lot of times, too, in a psychic reading, especially when somebody who's a psychic medium, they'll have a loved one coming forward and giving them information, which is not the same thing as a guide, because even if your mother was basically like a saint, she is not an ascended master, and more
Correct.
than likely, and so there is this bias to the information she may be bringing through. So it's a different energy,
It's
and
so important that you're saying that.
like I was working with people who are working in psychic development and mediumship, and the energy didn't, personally, it just didn't jive with me. That's not where, it's just not where I'm at. But
Yeah.
I love, there definitely are amazing psychic mediums out there who are very high vibrational. And it's like everything, use your discernment on who you get a reading
I
from.
feel like there's a very fine line between, but in a lot of heritage and a lot of cultures, it's about honoring our ancestors, and some of us want to be guided by our ancestors, and then we're living the same lives that our ancestors are living because we're calling in that energy. So how is it that we create that fine line where we are being guided by our ancestors, but we're asking guidance from a higher source, right? I mean, even within my family, sometimes we don't realize that that person that has been deceased still running the family,
Yes. Yes.
and whatever he wants, it's like he's still alive in a way.
Yeah. And totally. Yes,
Like we want
because
to
both my
honor
sisters,
them, but at the same time, we want to be guided by the highest there is. And sometimes people, I don't think they realize that Just because an ancestor has passed away doesn't mean that they're pure light. Well, they're
Exactly.
everyone's light, but they're not an ascended master per se, like you were saying. Can you explain the difference in that? I think that's key.
Okay, an ascended master. I'll give some examples. So, Mother Mary, Jesus, Kuan Yin, Lao Tzu, Mary Magdalene, Merlin. There's a debate about Merlin too. So call Merlin in Unconditional Love. I can work with him.
Yogananda,
Yogananda, exactly.
Krishna, Jesus
Krishna,
Christ.
yeah, Shiva, Kali, or well, no, Shiva's more of a god. Sorry. Yeah, but Yogananda, yes. And so with these ascended masters, they are souls that we know historically have been in this timeline in human form, and they've lived a human life. And they have also lived here in their darkness and in their light, where they had the full spectrum of experiences. Also, too, you take, let's say, someone like Mother Mary, who I work with deeply, and I actually she's a part of my family. I mean, it's interesting we're talking about the ancestral part of it, because she is absolutely part of my ancestral
Part of the
line.
Rose lineage, Holy
Yeah,
Grail.
yeah, and so she she I'm like, I kind of lost my train of thought. But someone like her, we know for a fact she lived here, and she had a very different kind of life. But she had many, 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 many lifetimes prior to being Mother Mary, where she underwent deep spiritual practice and deep spiritual initiation, where to bring her to that point where in this life that we know her as Mother Mary,
Yes.
she looks like a saint sometimes to people.
Yes.
And it's not just one. Usually, it's just not one incarnation. At least this is my personal, um, my personal information and my personal belief in
Correct.
tuning into her and tuning into like her and Mary Magdalene in particular, because I've seen them and they've just showed me their other lifetimes.
It's beautiful.
So these are people who've been humans who've had this bank of multiple lives of very deep spiritual practice, of actually incarnating and being able to integrate so much light within them that they reach that place where they get off the karmic wheel, if you will, and they no longer need to, unless they want to, come back into a body. And from that place of purity and unconditional love, they then can be of service to humanity. Now, someone like my mother, who comes in very lovingly, and I can tell the difference of her energy compared to the energy that she was in her human form. But she is someone who is in a learning process on the other side and is not an ascended master. And she is in a place of desiring to incarnate again, to be able to advance her soul
So,
into a higher vibration.
so with someone like your mother or when our ancestors come through and they ask things of us, right? Because that you see this a lot. How do you say yes or no and still honor them?
Well, I do feel it's discernment. I really do. It goes back to the discernment: is the request really a loving request for the best and highest good of all?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
yeah,
so important because I think
because not
people
everything
can
that
can channel a lot of their or they have a lot of dreams and grandma told me to do this, grandpa told me to do this, so and so told me to do this, and they're still here and they're so excited
yeah,
and they don't question at all. They
yeah,
don't. They just do.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, for me, I feel into things like that now.
Yeah.
And if the vibration is high and it feels right to me and it feels good in your heart, then it very possibly could be a clean piece of divine guidance.
Yeah.
Also, too, the other thing. Oh, I just cleared something around that. 'Cause you're burping over the time over here. The other thing too is I'm kind of curious. I'm almost like asking someone like Mother Mary, who's attached to, even though my mother had no personal relationship whatsoever to Mother Mary, but it came, my grandmother, her mother, and my cousins. I have cousins who had miraculous events like me happen with Mother Mary. And so I wonder if that we may also be able, when an ancestor comes through, someone that you really know, like your mother or your father, if you did know them in this lifetime, that if they will come in with an ancestor, with an ascended master who is attached to the family line.
That makes
So
sense.
that is a possibility of what can happen too. And so that would definitely raise the vibration of anything that would be coming through the ancestor.
That makes more sense. I like that.
That's what I'm feeling. Because
Yeah.
my dad was a very devout Catholic. And so my dad had a very deep relationship with Jesus and with God, in his language. And so he doesn't come through very often. But when he has come through in readings, I feel like that lineage is part of what he's bringing through in its purest form of unconditional love.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you so much, Marcia. Um, if the listeners have any questions about the Akashic Records or anything, let us know. We're going to be putting Marcia's information, her Instagram, her email, her website. She not just only does Akashic Records, but she also holds on very special portal days, not only full moons, but we had like the 5/5, the Lionsgate portal, and she does beautiful transmissions. And she always gathers beautiful, she attracts beautiful souls. And we do like a 2 hour template
Mm-hmm.
and transmission, and they're always so powerful, and you're setting in your intentions and you're tuning in, and you feel what she's channeling, a lot with Mother Mary, of course. And we
Mm-hmm.
work with different gods and goddesses. And one way of explaining, some people don't, well, why do we have to work with different gods and goddesses? That's just a way for us to interpret different types of vibrations and different frequencies. So think of colors. Colors all come from the color white, and then they go to prism, and then you see all the different colors, and every time you see a different color, they bring up different sentiments, different emotions. Same things with gods and goddesses. Think of it as different colors that help you work with different aspect of yourself. Everything is you playing with you, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it all goes back to the source of all that is.
Correct. Yes.
It's for all the gods and goddesses, all the ascended masters, and us. We're all just an aspect of the source of unconditional love of the
Yeah.
Creator Creator.
Yeah. And the Akashic Records is one other form for you to remember what is your purpose in this
Mm-hmm.
life. Why did we come here? What did we come here to learn and overcome? That's why we're here. And everything else is just a cherry on top, which is great. And just, having fun and, being joy, just so, we make the most out of why we're here. So, and doing it with purpose to help this world vibrate higher and ascend. And ultimately, it's for Mother Earth as well, and for the whole cosmos. Yes, it's all related. It's all one.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Marcia, so much. I love you. I'm so
Oh,
honored to have you. Mwah.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you
Mm.
for having me. It was such a blessing to be here and be a part of your beautiful soul work and to be on your mission with you, girl. What is,
Thank you. And you've been such a big part of this. I'm very thankful to have you as one of my healers and guides and someone that I can go to. So very, very important. I love you all. Thank you so much. Thank you, beautiful souls, for listening. Visit my website and subscribe to our monthly newsletter to be updated on the latest healing programs we have available, such as self-love, inner child healing, energy healing sessions, and one-on-one coaching. Plus, starting March 2022, I will be a CAP certified facilitator. That is CAP for Kundalini Activation process, and we'll be having activating virtual sessions as well as retreats around the world. So don't miss out and be the first to find out to secure your spot, since it will fill out quickly. Don't forget to like and subscribe to receive your latest dose of heart-opening medicine. Light and love.